Hi everybody, welcome to 5 Minute Ministries. And finishing up on the explanation of my story, the man who did not believe in Washington, D.C., at the very tail end of that story, the man determines that since there is no president and there is no Washington, D.C., then there are no laws, and I can do whatever I want. And of course, that statement divides the entire country. Some people follow him, some people follow the idea that there is a president, and the laws do matter and they should be obeyed. Well, people do this with God, of course. People will deny the existence of God in order to be able to do whatever they want and justify why they did it. I say, well, if there's no God, then His word doesn't matter. What He says doesn't matter. His standards, His rules, His laws, His whole existence, everything that He said, it doesn't matter. Because He doesn't exist, therefore I can do as I please. And you can't stop me. Now a question was raised at the time of what prevents me, if there's no God and there's no laws and God does not have a standard, what prevents me from doing all these heinous acts? What prevents me from raping? What prevents me from being mean to people? What prevents me from doing the things that hurt others? And an atheist responded and said, I choose not to be that way. Well, unfortunately, the question comes, why are you choosing that at all? How do you know you're right? How do you know right and wrong? How do you know it's not okay to go ahead and murder somebody? How do you know it's not okay to rape someone? How do you know it's not okay to steal? And they'll come up with all their reasons, and I'll have some links below where I talk about this very thing in other messages. But without a standard, we cannot determine right and wrong. And we, as human beings, cannot do it either, because our standards will constantly change. If you don't believe me, look at some of the things that the so-called cancel culture is canceling. The very things that were celebrated for over 70 years is now deemed evil and should not be shown, which becomes hypocritical because there are a lot of acclaimed things from the past that are still celebrated today, but they would never be made today because cancel culture would step in. And it's a really, really weird thing of how people think. One comedian also had said some years ago that what was once called sin is now a disease. And when we start looking at it from a perspective that isn't God's perspective, we can easily start to justify and rationalize our evil behavior. Well, you can't call it evil because that means that you are degrading a person. You are speaking out against somebody who just has a mental problem or just has an addiction or just has some kind of a disease, and medicine will cure it. And we found out that medicine can only go so far. Sinful behavior will always be sinful behavior, no matter how it makes us feel. No matter whether it does good for us or does bad for us, no matter the results, sinful behavior is always sinful behavior. Why? Because just denying that there is an existence of God does not stop God from existing. He will always exist no matter how much you try to deny His existence. And this thing has not only divided a country, it's divided the whole world. The whole world is still in a debate. Is there a God? Which God? Is there a right and wrong? I should be able to do whatever I want as long as I'm not hurting anybody. Well, the problem is God does exist, and even if you're not hurting another person, or at least you don't think you're hurting another person, you are going up against the ultimate authority. If God said it was a sin, it's a sin. End of story. We do not determine it based on our own feelings. We can read the Bible and say, well, I don't agree with that, so I'm not going to listen to that. That's not how this works. God is the one who sets the standard, not us. And if we disagree with Him, guess who's going to win the argument? It's always going to be God. This has been 5 Minute Ministries, and I'll see you next time.